Last week we were thinking about checking the route ahead. The Israelites sent scouts or spies into the Promised Land to find out what it was like. Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness, fasting without food and only water to drink. He was thinking and praying about how to undertake his mission to share God's love with his people. Today we have two more stories about the Israelites in the wilderness and about Jesus and a crowd of thousands. The Israelites were following God, but it seemed to them that he had let them down. They had food to eat, but there was no water. The people complained to Moses and once again wished that they had stayed in Egypt in slavery. Moses and his brother Aaron bring the problem to God. They pray. They confess their dependency and need of God and profess their trust in him. They know that God has the answer, even though they don't know it yet. God tells them to take the anointed staff or pole and command the rock to yield water. It seems to be a ridiculous solution. Surely it would be easier for God to make it rain, or for a dried up riverbed to flow with water from far away. But when they come to the rock, Moses strikes it with his staff, and the water flows out abundantly. The water was there all the time. It was ready to burst out. God had said that if Moses had spoken the command, the water would have come out. Moses was in trouble with God for having struck the rock with the staff because it took away from God some of the credit. It was careless disobedience that showed a lack of trust in God. When Jesus was speaking to the crowd of 5,000 people, they were enthralled. No one wanted to leave, and Jesus was determined to make the most of the opportunity. We are told that it was a deserted place. There were no farms or shops in the area. It was getting dark, and the disciples had food only for themselves. They told Jesus to send the people away. But Jesus had a better idea. He suggested that the disciples should feed the people themselves. It was a ridiculous suggestion. It would take 200 days' wages to feed all these people, about £16,000 in today's money. But Jesus prayed and divided the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and sent the disciples out into the crowd who were sat down waiting. Afterwards, they filled 12 great baskets with the leftovers. In both of these situations, God provides in outrageous abundance, far more than the skeptics thought was possible. Today, most of us take the productivity of the earth for granted. We don't give the farmers enough respect or credit for the food that they grow and provide for us. We demand cheap food at the drop of a hat, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Even in the church, there are too many of us who are skeptical. God says that if we lift up his Son Jesus, then people would come and worship him. Too often, we think that God can only do what we can do by ourselves. We don't want to ask him to help us because we're worried that he might not answer and make us look foolish or worse. Yet God today is the same as he was in Jesus' time and in Moses' time. He is the creator. He is the provider. He is the healer. He is the one who guides us through the wilderness to the promised land. But if we don't listen to him and we don't do what he tells us to do, then what will happen to us? How could we find our way to the promised land without God to lead us and guide us? Later on in the story of Jesus, the disciples complained to Jesus that they didn't know the way. Jesus replied, "I am the way and the truth and the life. Don't be afraid. Put your trust in me." In these days when the future seems dangerous and uncertain, When the old ways lie irretrievably behind us, we need to rediscover the ways of Jesus and listen to his voice and be open to his Spirit. With God, all things are possible to those who believe. Amen.